Imagine the screech of metal twisting like a scream from hell itself, the world flipping upside down in an instant. What if the life you built, the one you fought tooth and nail to hold together, after losing your husband, ended not with a quiet fade, but in a blaze of chaos on a cold Chicago night? That's where Evelyn Carter found herself, a 58-year-old widow with calloused hands from years of waitressing, double shifts, sitting in the dim glow of a passenger train, rumbling through the foggy outskirts of the windy city back in 1995. The air smelled of stale coffee and rain-soaked coats, and Evelyn clutched her worn leather purse, thinking about the simple dinner she'd make when she got home, maybe meatloaf, her granddaughter Zoe's favorite. But then, without warning, a jolt like an earthquake ripped through the car. The train lurched violently, wheels grinding against the tracks in a deafening roar. Passengers gasped, some screaming as luggage tumbled from overhead bins. Evelyn's heart slammed against her ribs. Time slowed as she gripped the armrest, her mind flashing to Zoe's sweet face at 17 and her daughter Rebecca, always so distant, always needing more. "Oh God, no," she whispered, her voice lost in the pandemonium. Before we continue, take a moment to share where you're listening from and subscribe to the Ageless Bold Stories channel. I truly love seeing our stories reach across so many places and hearts. Together, we're creating a space where every season of life still holds its own wonder, its own turning point. Now, let's ease ourselves back into the story. The train car buckled like a tin can under a giant's boot. Evelyn was hurled forward, her body slamming into the seat in front, a sharp crack echoing in her ears. Maybe her ribs, maybe something worse. Smoke billowed in thick, choking waves, acrid and burning her throat as she coughed violently. Around her, the world was a nightmare of twisted steel and shattered glass. A man across the aisle groaned, his leg pinned under a fallen beam, blood pooling on the floor. "Help! Somebody help!" a woman wailed from the back, her voice raw with terror. Evelyn's head spun, pain shooting through her shoulder like fire, but she pushed it down. That stubborn grit she'd honed, raising a family on her own, kicking in. She unbuckled her seatbelt with trembling fingers, ignoring the warm trickle of blood down her forehead. "Hold on," she called out to no one in particular, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. Crawling over debris, shards of glass slicing her palms, she reached for a young mother clutching a crying toddler nearby. "It's gonna be okay," Evelyn murmured, helping to shield them as another aftershock rattled the wreckage. But inside, her own panic rose. Would she ever see Zoe again? Hear her laugh about some silly school drama? The screams grew louder, piercing the haze like knives. Evelyn's breath came in ragged gasps, her lungs burning from the smoke. She spotted an opening, a jagged tear in the side of the car where cold night air rushed in. "This way!" she shouted to the mother, her voice cracking with effort. Adrenaline surged, masking the agony in her legs as she dragged herself toward the gap, pulling the woman and child along. Outside, the scene was apocalyptic. Train cars piled like broken toys in a ravine, flames licking at the edges, sirens wailing faintly in the distance. Rescuers in yellow vests swarmed the site, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope. One spotted Evelyn emerging from the hole, her face smeared with soot and blood. "Over here! We've got survivors!" he yelled, rushing forward with a stretcher. Evelyn collapsed into his arms, her body finally giving out, waves of pain crashing over her. Tears stung her eyes, not just from the smoke, but from the overwhelming relief mixed with dread. What if this was it? What if her life, all those quiet sacrifices for Rebecca and Zoe, ended here in this God-forsaken mess? But as they loaded her onto the ambulance, Evelyn's mind clung to fragments of home. The faded photo of her late husband in her purse, now lost in the rubble. The way Zoe's eyes lit up when Evelyn baked apple pie. Even Rebecca's rare calls, always laced with that undercurrent of need. The paramedics worked frantically, wrapping her wounds, starting an IV. "Stay with us, ma'am," one said, his young face etched with concern. Evelyn nodded weakly, but inside a storm brewed. The pain peaked again, a searing stab in her side that made her gasp. Visions of her family blurring with the red lights flashing around her. She thought of Rebecca, 35 now, always chasing dreams that slipped away, borrowing money Evelyn could barely spare. "Please," Evelyn whispered to the night sky, "let me make it back to them." Little did she know the real nightmare was just beginning. As the rescuers mislabeled a charred body in the debris, sealing her fate in ways she couldn't yet imagine, the emotional tide swelled as Evelyn lay there, stretcher jostling over uneven ground, her thoughts spiraling into a vortex of what-ifs. Peak 1 hit like a wave, the raw terror of the crash replaying in her mind, bodies trapped, voices fading. Had she done enough to help others? Her heart ached with survivor's guilt, tears streaming freely now. Then came Peak 2, softer but deeper, the flood of memories from her life as a widow, scraping by in that cozy brownstone, pouring love into Zoe while Rebecca drifted further away. "I can't leave them like this," she sobbed quietly. The paramedic squeezing her hand, but the third peak crashed hardest. A fierce, unyielding resolve bubbling up through the pain. A mother's fire that refused to be extinguished. "I'm not done yet," she muttered defiantly, clinging to consciousness as the ambulance doors slammed shut. And just as the sirens blared into the night, a radio crackled with the news that would change everything. "We've got a positive ID on one of the fatalities. Evelyn Carter, confirmed dead at the scene." The ambulance sped through the foggy Chicago night, sirens wailing like a banshee, cutting through the chaos of the derailment site. Evelyn lay strapped to the gurney, her world a blur of flashing lights and muffled voices. The paramedic's words from moments ago echoed in her head. "Stay with us, ma'am." But now that radio crackle haunted her, positive ID on one of the fatalities, Evelyn Carter, confirmed dead at the scene. What her mind reeled, a fresh wave of confusion crashing over the pain. She tried to sit up, but straps held her down, and a sharp stab in her side made her gasp. "Easy there," the young paramedic said, his gloved hand gentle on her arm. "You've got some busted ribs, maybe internal bleeding. We're getting you to a clinic fast." Clinic, not a hospital? Evelyn's thoughts swirled. Why not the big ER downtown? But exhaustion pulled at her and she sank back, the cold IV drip in her vein a small anchor in the storm. As the vehicle bounced over potholes, Evelyn pieced together fragments from the wreck. Her purse, gone, probably buried under twisted metal. It had her wallet, her driver's license, even that old locket with her husband's photo. Without it, who would know her? The rescuers must have found some poor soul's remains, charred beyond recognition, and slapped her name on it. A mix-up. That's all it had to be. But the thought gnawed at her. The world already mourning her, newspapers printing her obituary tomorrow. Zoe crying into her pillow. Evelyn's chest tightened, not just from the injuries, but from a deep, aching fear. "My family," she murmured, her voice hoarse. The paramedic leaned in. "What was that?" "My daughter, granddaughter. They think I'm—" She trailed off, tears mixing with the grime on her face. He nodded sympathetically. "We'll sort it out once you're stable. Right now, focus on breathing." They pulled into a small, nondescript clinic on the edge of the city, far from the glaring lights of the main hospitals. It looked more like a private doctor's office than an emergency centre. Low brick building, a single ambulance bay, no crowds rushing about. "Why here?" Evelyn asked weakly as they wheeled her inside. The paramedic exchanged a glance with a nurse in scrubs. "Overcrowding at the big places from the crash. This spot's equipped for trauma. Don't worry." Inside, the air was sterile and quiet, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Doctors in white coats swarmed her, poking and prodding, ordering x-rays and scans. "Multiple fractures, punctured lung, contusions," one barked. Evelyn winced as they inserted a chest tube, the pain exploding like fireworks in her torso. She bit her lip, tasting blood, refusing to cry out. Through the haze of morphine they pushed into her veins, she clung to images of home, the brownstone with its creaky stairs, Zoe's artwork taped to the fridge, Rebecca's occasional visits that always ended with a request for just a little help. "Mom?" Hours blurred into a foggy limbo. Evelyn drifted in and out, waking to the beep of monitors and the soft shuffle of nurses' shoes. Her room was private, curtains drawn, no windows to the outside world. A kind-faced nurse named Maria checked her vitals, adjusting pillows with a gentle touch. "You're a tough one, honey," Maria said, her Chicago accent thick and comforting. Most folks wouldn't have made it out of that mess. Evelyn managed a weak smile. "Gotta tell my family. Phone?" Maria hesitated. "Soon as we get the all clear from the doc, there's a lot of confusion out there. Reporters swarming, families calling hospitals. We're keeping things low-key here to avoid the frenzy." Evelyn nodded, but unease settled in her gut. Low-key, it felt like hiding. As the drugs pulled her under again, she dreamed of Rebecca, her sharp features always so put together, but with that underlying tension. "Mum, I need the house deed signed over," Rebecca had said last month, eyes avoiding hers. Evelyn had brushed it off then, but now in this sterile bed, it nagged at her. Morning light filtered through the cracks in the blinds, or what passed for morning in this windowless haze. Evelyn awoke to throbbing pain, her body a map of bruises and bandages. The doctor, a stern man with wire-rimmed glasses, reviewed her chart at the foot of the bed. "Mrs. Carter, or should I say Jane Doe for now?" he said not unkindly. Evelyn's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" He sighed, pulling up a stool. "Your ID wasn't recovered at the scene and, well, there's been a misidentification. A body matching your description, age, build, was found burned in the wreckage. Dental records are pending, but the authorities have already notified next of kin based on passenger manifests." Evelyn's world tilted again. "Notified? They think I'm dead?" The doctor nodded gravely. "It's a mess out there. We're holding off on correcting it until you're stable. No need to add emotional stress to your recovery." Emotional stress? Evelyn's mind raced, panic bubbling up. Zoe, only 17, hearing that knock on the door from some cop. Rebecca, maybe shedding crocodile tears while eyeing the life insurance. Maria bustled in with breakfast, bland oatmeal and jello, but Evelyn pushed it away. "I need to call them, now." The nurse patted her hand. "Doc's orders, sweetie. Your lungs still healing. Stress could set you back." But as Maria left, Evelyn's thoughts turned darker. What if this mix-up bought her time? Time to heal without the fuss, without Rebecca swooping in with her demands. She'd always been the giver, paying Rebecca's debts after that bad divorce, spoiling Zoe with little extras. But lately Rebecca's calls felt colder, more transactional. "Just sign this, Mom. It's for the best." Evelyn stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them to steady her breath. 24, 25, her body screamed in protest every time she shifted. But her mind was alive, buzzing with questions. How long could she stay dead? What would her family do without her? The day dragged on with tests and treatments, physical therapy starting with just wiggling her toes, a psychologist popping in to talk about trauma processing. Evelyn played along, but inside, isolation wrapped around her like a shroud. No visitors, no calls, just the hum of machines and occasional chatter from the hall. Heard about that train crash? Over 50 dead, a orderly said outside her door. Families are devastated. Devastated. The word hit Evelyn like a punch. She imagined Zoe curled up on the couch, sobbing while Rebecca handled the arrangements with that efficient air of hers. Would Rebecca even cry, or would she see it as freedom? Evelyn shook the thought away, but it lingered, a seed of doubt sprouting in her chest. By evening, the pain meds wore off enough for clarity, and she whispered to herself, I have to fix this. But as nurses dimmed the lights, a deeper whisper crept in. What if you don't? What if you watch from the shadows, see who they really are without you? Emotional peaks built as the hours ticked by. First, the gut-wrenching realization of the misidentification hit her full force, tears flowing freely as she pictured her family's grief, or lack thereof, leaving her feeling utterly alone in that quiet room. Then came the simmering anger, a hot flush rising as she replayed years of sacrifices for Rebecca, wondering if it had all been one-sided. How could they think I'm gone? She choked out to the empty air. But the third peak surged strongest, a quiet, fierce curiosity mixed with resolve, her weary eyes narrowing as she contemplated staying hidden just a little longer. Let's see what happens, she murmured, heart pounding with a mix of fear and defiance. And as sleep finally claimed her, the radio in the nurse's station crackled with updates on the crash victims, listing her name among the lost, sealing her secret recovery in a web of official error that no one yet knew to unravel. Days turned into a hazy routine in that quiet clinic, the kind of place where time felt suspended, like a snow globe shaken just once and left to settle. Evelyn's body mended slowly, ribs taped, lung draining through that infernal tube, bruises blooming like dark flowers across her skin. She spent hours staring at the speckled ceiling, tracing patterns in the tiles to distract from the ache that never fully faded. Maria, the nurse with the warm smile and endless supply of Jell-O cups, became her lifeline, chatting about her own kids during vitals checks. My boy's about your granddaughter's age, Maria said one afternoon, adjusting the IV drip. Always got his nose in a book. What's yours like? Evelyn managed a faint grin. Zoe, she's a dreamer. Sketches all day, talks about art school. Smart as a whip, but soft-hearted. Talking about home eased the isolation a bit, but it also stirred up that nagging doubt from her first night. The radio updates had gone silent on her name, but the seed was planted. What were Rebecca and Zoe doing right now, believing she was gone? By the end of the week, Evelyn could sit up without gasping, even shuffle to the bathroom with a walker's help. The doctor nodded approval during rounds. You're a fighter, Evelyn. Another few days and we can talk discharge. But discharge to where? She still hadn't called home, hadn't corrected the record. Part of her rationalized it, the clinic's low-key policy, her own weakness. But deeper down, a curiosity brewed almost like a dare to herself. Let them think you're dead a little longer, see how they handle it. Maria brought in a small TV for distraction, tuning it to local news. Crash coverage is dying down, she said, flipping channels. Evelyn watched footage of the wreckage, families at memorials, her own name scrolling in the victim list. It felt surreal, like watching someone else's life unravel. Turn it off, she whispered finally, a lump in her throat. But as Maria reached for the remote, Evelyn's ears perked up at a familiar ring, a cell phone left on the bedside table by accident. No, it was Maria's, buzzing with an incoming call. Maria glanced at the screen, then at Evelyn. "Sorry, hun, gotta take this. My sister's watching the kids." She stepped out into the hall, but the door didn't latch fully, leaving a crack. Evelyn strained to hear, not eavesdropping on purpose, but the voices carried in the quiet wing. At first, it was mundane, Maria chatting about dinner plans, but then a shift. "Yeah, I heard about that Carter lady from the crash. Poor thing listed as dead, but get this, she's right here, alive as you or me. Mix up with the bodies." Evelyn's blood ran cold. Who was Maria talking to? The voice on the other end crackled through the speakerphone. Wait, speakerphone? Maria must have hit it by mistake. And that voice familiar, sharp, like a knife edge. Wait, Evelyn Carter? The one from the brownstone on Elm? Oh my God, Maria, that's my mom. Rebecca. Evelyn's heart hammered, joy surging at first, hearing her daughter's voice after all this. But then Rebecca continued, her tone not tearful, not relieved. "You're sure it's her, alive?" Maria laughed lightly, positive, tough old bird. "Why, you sound surprised." Rebecca's response came quick, almost breathless. "Surprised? Try relieved. In the worst way. I mean, damn, I thought we were finally free of her nagging and those endless bills. You know how she was, always holding the purse strings like a noose." Evelyn froze, the words slamming into her like a freight train all over again. Free? Nagging? Her mind reeled, the tube in her chest suddenly feeling like it was twisting deeper. Maria's voice turned confused. "Becky, that's your mom. Aren't you going to come see her?" Rebecca, 35 now, with that polished real estate job and perpetual chip on her shoulder, let out a laugh, sharp and mirthless. "See her? After she dragged us through hell with Dad's death, pinching pennies while I scraped by? No, Maria, this is a gift. If the worlds think she's dead, let's keep it that way for a bit. I can sell the house, clear the debts she saddled me with, finally ditch the financial drag. God, it's like Christmas came early." The betrayal hit Evelyn like a physical blow, her breath catching in ragged sobs she fought to silence. Betrayal, that word echoed in her mind, cold and final, as if all those years of love and sacrifice had been a joke. She remembered co-signing Rebecca's first apartment loan, bailing her out after the divorce, even dipping into savings for Zoe's school trips. And this? Laughter at her death? Planning to sell everything? Evelyn's hands clenched the bedsheets, nails digging into palms, pain mingling with a rising fury that burned hotter than her injuries. Maria's voice cut in, shocked. "Becky, you can't be serious. She's your mother." Rebecca snorted. "Mother? More like a burden. Look, don't tell her I called. Just keep me posted if she croaks for real this time. I gotta go. Appraiser's coming for the house tomorrow." The call ended with a click, leaving silence that roared in Evelyn's ears. She lay there, staring at the cracked door, tears streaming unchecked. The emotional peaks crashed one after another. First, the initial shock, a numb disbelief that made her world tilt. How could her own flesh and blood sound so thrilled? Then the gut-wrenching hurt, memories flooding back of Rebecca as a little girl, hugging her tight after Dad's funeral, whispering, "It's okay, Mommy." Where had that child gone? The third peak surged as raw anger, a fire in her belly that overrode the physical agony, making her whisper fiercely, "You ungrateful—" But she stopped, breathing hard, the tube whistling with each inhale. Maria slipped back in, phone pocketed. Oblivious. "Sorry about that. Family drama, you know." Evelyn forced a nod, her voice steady despite the storm inside. Yeah, I know. But as Maria fussed with the blankets, Evelyn's mind raced ahead. No calls home now, no rushing back. If Rebecca saw her as a financial drag, fine. She'd stay dead a while longer, watch from the shadows, see just how deep this knife went. The afternoon dragged, sunlight slanting through the blinds in golden bars that mocked her turmoil. Evelyn picked at her lunch tray. Cold turkey sandwich, applesauce, appetite gone. Every creak in the hall made her flinch, half expecting Rebecca to burst in with fake tears. But no one came, the betrayal replayed on loop. Finally ditched the financial drag. Christmas came early, each word a fresh cut, revealing cracks in their relationship she'd ignored for years. Rebecca's late-night calls for money, the way she'd dismiss Evelyn's advice with an eye roll. You're old school, Mum. Times change. Zoe, though, sweet Zoe. Did she know? Was she in on this? Evelyn's heart ached at the thought, picturing her granddaughter alone in that house, maybe staring at Evelyn's empty chair. I have to protect her, Evelyn murmured to herself, resolve hardening like steel. By evening the pain meds kicked in, but sleep evaded her. Instead, she plotted in whispers. The clinic's quiet amplifying her thoughts. Call the lawyer? Thomas, that old friend from church, he'd know what to do. But first, heal, hide. The doctor stopped by for a final check. Looking better. We'll pull that tube tomorrow. Evelyn nodded absently, her mind elsewhere. As lights dimmed, she stared into the dark, the word betrayal burning bright. It wasn't just words, it was a lifetime erased for convenience. And as exhaustion finally pulled her under, a new fire kindled. Not just survival, but something sharper, a plan taking shape in the shadows of her broken body. The night stretched on like an endless tunnel, the clinic's fluorescent hum the only soundtrack to Evelyn's churning thoughts. She lay there, body still a battlefield of aches and bandages, but her mind was a whirlwind, replaying Rebecca's cold laughter over and over. Financial drag. Christmas came early. Each replay fueled a fire that started in her gut and spread, turning the raw hurt into something sharper, more useful. Anger. By morning, when Maria poked her head in with a breakfast tray, Evelyn had made her choice. No rushing home, no tearful reunion. If Rebecca saw her as a burden to be dumped, then fine. She'd become a ghost, at least for now. How you feeling today, hun? Maria asked, setting down oatmeal and juice. Evelyn forced a weak smile, her voice steady. Better, but I need a favor. Can you get me a phone? Private call. Maria raised an eyebrow but nodded. Sure thing, Doc says you're stable enough. The phone was an old rotary style, cord snaking to the wall like a lifeline. Evelyn waited until the hall quieted, then dialed a number etched in her memory. Thomas, her lawyer from back when her husband passed. He'd handled the will, the insurance, always with that calm, no-nonsense way that made her feel safe. The line rang twice before he picked up. Thomas here. Evelyn's throat tightened. It's me, Evelyn. Silence, then a sharp intake of breath. Evelyn, but the news, the crash. I'm alive, she whispered, glancing at the door. Mix up at the scene. They think I'm dead, and for now I want it to stay that way. She spilled it all, the wreck, the clinic, the overheard call. Thomas listened, interrupting only once. Rebecca said that? Good Lord. By the end, Evelyn's voice shook, but not from weakness. I need your help. Keep this quiet and find out what the railroad's offering for survivors. Hush money, whatever, I want in. Thomas paused. This is risky, Ev, legally, ethically. Please, she cut in, her tone fierce. After everything I've given her, she laughs. I deserve this. He sighed. All right, give me a day. Stay put. The weight crawled by, Evelyn pushing through physical therapy, slow steps down the hall, gripping the walker like it was her anger made solid. Her ribs screamed with each breath, but she welcomed the pain. It kept her sharp, reminded her why she was doing this. Maria noticed the change. "You're like a woman on a mission today." Evelyn just nodded, mind elsewhere. By afternoon, the doctor pulled the chest tube, a fresh agony that left her gasping, sweat beading on her forehead. "You're healing fast," he said. "Discharge soon." But Evelyn waved off talk of notifying family. "Not yet, complications." He frowned but didn't push. As evening fell, the phone rang. Thomas. "Got something. Railroad's desperate to avoid lawsuits. They're offering settlements to survivors. Confidential, no publicity. For you, since you're dead, 12 million. Tax-free, wired anywhere. But you sign away rights. Stay silent." Evelyn's heart raced. 12 million? More than she'd ever dreamed. Scraping by on waitress tips. "Do it," she said without hesitation. "Set up an account under a new name. Evelyn Gray, my maiden name." Thomas whistled low. "You're serious about vanishing?" "Dead serious." Papers arrived the next day via courier, a thick envelope Maria handed over with a curious glance. "Legal stuff?" Evelyn shrugged it off. "Old business." Alone, she pored over the documents, pen trembling in her bandaged hand. Non-disclosure, liability waiver, the works. It felt like signing her old life away, but as she scrolled her name, Evelyn Carter, soon to be a memory, a strange calm settled. This wasn't running, it was reclaiming. The money would buy freedom, time to heal, time to watch Rebecca unravel her web. Thomas called to confirm, wired to a Swiss account, accessible via an alias. "You're set? Now what?" "Now I disappear," Evelyn replied, voice steel. "Keep an eye on things back home. Let me know what she does." He hesitated. "This could blow up, you know." "Let it, just not yet." Discharge came quietly 2 days later. The clinic staff wheeled her to a back exit. No fanfare, no records tying her to the crash beyond the basics. Maria hugged her gently. "Take care of yourself, tough lady, and call your family soon, okay?" Evelyn nodded, but inside the lie sat heavy. A cab waited, paid for anonymously, whisking her to a nondescript motel on the city's outskirts. Faded neon sign buzzing, vacancy. The kind of place where no one asked questions. She checked in as Evelyn Gray, cash from a small advance Thomas arranged. The room smelled of stale smoke and cheap cleaner, bed sagging under her as she collapsed onto it. Pain flared anew, legs shaky from the walk, ribs protesting every move, but the fury overrode it. A hot coal in her chest. She stared at the peeling wallpaper, mind mapping next steps. Heal fully, change her look maybe, then shadow Rebecca, see the greed up close. Weeks blurred in that motel haze, Evelyn venturing out only for essentials, groceries from a corner store, pain meds from a pharmacy that didn't blink at her alias. She dyed her hair a mousy brown in the tiny bathroom sink, watching the grey rinse away like her old self. Subtle makeup hid scars, a pair of glasses from a thrift shop altered her face just enough. Mornings were PT routines, stretches on the threadbare carpet, building strength step by painful step. Afternoons, she pored over newspapers Thomas mailed, clippings about the crash fading from headlines. Her obituary, a small blurb. Beloved mother and grandmother, survived by daughter Rebecca and granddaughter Zoe. No mention of services. Evenings brought the real work, phone calls to Thomas on a burner. "She's moving fast," he reported one night. "House listed already, appraisers in and out." Evelyn's grip tightened on the receiver. "And Zoe?" "Quiet, staying with Rebecca, but sounds withdrawn." The updates fueled her, turning disillusionment into strategy. Rebecca's manipulation laid bare, no grief, just grabs for cash. As her body knit back together, walks growing longer, pain dulling to an ache, Evelyn's emotions deepened, a bitter brew. Love for Rebecca curdled, memories of birthdays and school plays tainted by the betrayal's acid. "How long?" she'd whisper to the mirror, seeing a stranger's fierce eyes stare back. But Zoe, that bond held a soft spot in the armor. She'd protect her somehow. One rainy night, Evelyn stepped out, hood up, hailing a cab to the Brownstones' neighborhood. From a park bench across the street, she watched shadows move in the windows, Rebecca's silhouette, gesturing animatedly on the phone, no sign of mourning. A for sale sign stabbed the lawn like a dagger. Evelyn's breath hitched, anger peaking in a silent vow. "You'll see," she murmured to the night. "I'll watch every step, wait for the moment." Heartbreak had forged her into something new, a strategist, patient and unyielding, the 12 million her war chest. The climax loomed, but for now anonymity was her shield, fury her guide. The motel room had become Evelyn's fortress, a dingy cocoon where she shed her old skin day by day. With the 12 million tucked away in that Swiss account, thanks to Thomas's slick work, she felt a strange power humming under her ribs, stronger than the lingering ache from the crash. Mornings now meant purpose. A quick breakfast of instant coffee and toast from the mini fridge, then out into the Chicago streets. Her new brown hair tucked under a baseball cap, glasses perched on her nose like a disguise from some old spy movie. She rented a beat-up sedan with cash, nothing flashy, just enough to blend into the traffic. "Time to see the show," she'd mutter to her reflection each day, that fire in her belly pushing her forward. Rebecca thought she was gone, fine. Evelyn would be the ghost haunting from the edges, piecing together the puzzle of her daughter's greed. Her first real stakeout started simple. Parking a block from the brownstone, binoculars hidden in her lap like she was birdwatching. The neighborhood hadn't changed much. Tree-lined streets, kids biking past, the corner deli still selling those greasy Italian beef sandwiches Evelyn used to crave. But the house, her house, looked like a stranger's now. The for sale sign swung in the breeze. Charming fixer-upper plastered across it in bold letters. Evelyn's stomach twisted as she watched Rebecca pull up in her shiny SUV, clipboard in hand, heels clicking on the sidewalk. A couple followed her inside, potential buyers, laughing and pointing at the porch Evelyn had painted herself last summer. Through the open windows, Evelyn caught glimpses. Rebecca gesturing grandly, her voice carrying faintly. "Lots of potential here. Ignore the dated stuff. We can stage it fresh." Dated? That was Evelyn's life she was dismissing, the floral curtains she'd sewn, the oak table where Zoe did homework. Evelyn's hands clenched the steering wheel, knuckles white, a mix of sorrow and rage bubbling up. How could Rebecca erase it all so easily? As days turned to weeks, Evelyn got bolder, slipping closer under cover of dusk or early fog. One evening she parked behind a delivery van, watching movers haul boxes out the front door. Rebecca directed them like a general, her face flushed not with grief, but excitement. That old chest? Junket. And those medals? Pawn shop, maybe? Evelyn's breath caught. Her late husband's war medals, Purple Heart in all earned in Vietnam, the ones she'd polish every Memorial Day, tossed like trash. She bit back tears, the ache in her chest sharper than any rib fracture. Then came the drawings, faded crayon scribbles from Rebecca's kindergarten days, framed on the wall for years. A mover dropped one, glass cracking, and Rebecca just shrugged. "Whatever, donate the lot." Evelyn whispered to herself. You drew those for me, Becky. Said they were magic. The betrayal stung fresh, but it hardened her, turning soft memories into fuel. She snapped discreet photos with a disposable camera Thomas sent, documenting every haul-away, every erasure. Posing as a grieving daughter became Rebecca's full-time act. Evelyn learned from her vantage points. One afternoon, from a coffee shop window down the block, she watched Rebecca host an estate sale in the driveway, tables laden with Evelyn's treasures, her grandmother's china set, the quilt from their family cabin up north, even Zoe's old baby blanket. Neighbors milled about, offering condolences. "So sorry about your mom," one said, hugging Rebecca. She dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue. "It's been devastating, but she would have wanted us to move on, you know, turn this place into something new." Evelyn nearly choked on her black coffee, the hypocrisy burning her throat. Move on, with a fat check from the sale, no doubt. And there was Zoe, 17 and lanky, helping stack boxes but looking lost, her eyes downcast. "Gran would hate this," Evelyn heard her mutter to Rebecca, voice small. Rebecca waved it off. "She's gone, kiddo. Time to think practical." Evelyn's heart broke for Zoe, that soft-hearted girl caught in the middle, but it steeled her resolve. Protect her, expose this. The real estate hustle kicked into high gear. Evelyn shadowing Rebecca to open houses and client meetings. Disguised in oversized coats and scarves, she'd linger nearby, piecing together the scheme. Rebecca leveraged the tragedy for sympathy, telling prospects, "Lost my mom in that awful train crash. It's why I'm passionate about fresh starts." Passionate? Evelyn scoffed from her hiding spots, watching deals close over handshakes. The brownstones sold quick, cash rolling in, and Rebecca splurged, a new office downtown, sleek with glass walls and modern art. Evelyn tailed her there one rainy day, peering through binoculars from a parked car across the street. Inside, Rebecca laughed with associates, toasting with champagne. To new beginnings without the old baggage. Baggage. That's what Evelyn was now. The sight ached deep, a mother's love warring with the truth, but it pushed her forward. She couldn't confront yet, body still healing, plan half-formed, but watching built the case, each glimpse a brick in the wall of evidence. Thomas became her anchor in the shadows, weekly calls from payphones updating her. "She's dipping into your old accounts already," he reported one night, voice grave. "Small transfers, but it's adding up." Evelyn paced the motel room, cord stretched taut. "Proof? Bank statements. I pulled strings." The news hit like a gut punch, but it clarified everything. Rebecca wasn't just opportunistic. This was calculated, years in the making. Evelyn's emotions peaked in waves. First, the hollow ache of seeing her life hawked like garage sale junk, tears blurring her vision as she drove away. Then fury at Rebecca's fake grief, hands shaking with the urge to storm in. Finally, a cold resolve settled, eyes narrowing as she whispered, "You'll pay for this." It wasn't revenge yet, just surveillance, scheming in the dark. But each day, it led her closer to the breaking point, the climax brewing like a storm on the horizon. Zoe's glimpses kept Evelyn grounded, a reminder of what mattered. One Saturday, from behind a newspaper in the park near the house, she watched Zoe sit on the stoop, sketching in her notebook, long hair falling over her face, that same crooked smile Evelyn remembered from her own youth. Rebecca barked from inside, "Hurry up, we gotta clear the attic." Zoe sighed, packing up, but not before tucking a small photo into her pocket. Evelyn's, maybe? The sight softened the edges of Evelyn's anger, planting seeds of alliance. "Hang in there, kid," she murmured. That night, back in the motel, Evelyn spread out her notes, photos, clippings, Thomas's reports. The erasure of her life hurt like hell, but it forged her anew. No more waiting tables, no more scraping by. With the money and the truth, she'd strike when ready. The resolve burned bright, leading straight to the unexpected twist waiting in the wings. The stakeouts had become Evelyn's new routine, a shadowy dance through Chicago's bustling streets that kept her one step ahead of the life she'd left behind. But watching from afar only fueled the questions gnawing at her. Why the rush to sell everything? Why no real grief? She needed answers, the kind that paper trails could provide. Back in the motel one stormy evening, rain pelting the window like accusations, Evelyn dialed Thomas from the payphone down the hall. "I need more than updates," she said, voice low. "Dig deeper, bank records, whatever you can get." Thomas paused on the line, the crackle of thunder echoing her urgency. "All right, Ev, but this means subpoenas. Quiet ones. Give me a week." She hung up, heart pounding, the 12 million feeling less like a safety net and more like ammunition now. As she slipped back to her room, the plan solidified. Uncover the full extent of Rebecca's game, then strike. Thomas didn't disappoint. A manila envelope arrived via courier a few days later, slipped under her door like a secret from an old film noir. Evelyn tore it open on the sagging bed, papers spilling out, bank statements, transaction logs, even some old emails Thomas had pulled through legal channels. Her hands shook as she scanned them, the numbers jumping off the page like red flags. Small withdrawals here and there, starting years back. $500 for expenses, $2,000 for emergency, all from Evelyn's savings account, the one she'd built penny by penny after her husband died. Rebecca's signature on the forms, forged or authorized. Evelyn's breath hitched as she pieced it together. Rebecca had access. From that time, Evelyn added her as a co-signer during the divorce, just in case. But this wasn't in case. This was theft, slow and steady, siphoning thousands over time. "That explains it," Evelyn whispered, the twist hitting like a sucker punch. The rush to cash in after the crash. Not just opportunism. Rebecca had been bleeding her dry for years, a hidden betrayal that made the overheard phone call look like child's play. She called Thomas immediately, pacing the threadbare carpet. "How much total?" "Close to 50 grand spread out," he replied, voice grim. She covered tracks with fake receipts, but it's there, embezzlement, plain and simple. Evelyn sank into the chair, the motel room spinning. 50 grand? Gone on what? Rebecca's fancy clothes, that SUV, maybe even seed money for her real estate gigs? The betrayal deepened, roots twisting back to those late-night arguments where Rebecca begged for loans. Evelyn always gave, thinking it was family helping family. "She was playing me all along," Evelyn said, voice cracking. Thomas sighed. "We can press charges, but with you dead, it's complicated." "Not yet," she shot back, resolve kicking in. "First, we fix the future. The will, time to change it." Thomas agreed to meet discreetly at a coffee shop on the outskirts, away from prying eyes. The meeting felt clandestine, like something out of a thriller novel Evelyn used to read on slow shifts. She arrived early, cap pulled low, nursing a black coffee in a corner booth. Thomas slid in across from her, briefcase in hand, his salt and pepper hair unchanged since her husband's funeral. "You look different," he said, eyeing her dyed hair and glasses. "Good different, tougher." Evelyn managed a wry smile. "Dying will do that to you." They got down to business, papers spread between muffin crumbs. The old will left everything to Rebecca, with a portion for Zoe, standard stuff from years ago. But now? "Scrap it," Evelyn said firmly. "I want a trust for Zoe, locked tight until she's 25, and only if she's out from under Rebecca's thumb. No joint accounts, no guardianship BS. Thomas nodded, jotting notes. We can add clauses, proof of financial independence, maybe annual check-ins. That protects her from influence. As they hammered out details, Evelyn's emotions swirled, a storm of hurt, anger, and fierce protectiveness. The embezzlement reveal peaked first, a hot flush of betrayal that made her slam the table lightly. She stole from me, Thomas, her own mother. He reached across, steadying her hand. I know, this will make it right. Then came the sorrow, softer as she thought of Zoe, 17 and vulnerable, probably swallowing Rebecca's lies. That girl's the only good thing left. I won't let Rebecca poison her too. Thomas outlined the rest. The bulk of the settlement funneled into a new foundation, something Evelyn dreamed up on those long motel nights. Call it the Second Chance Network for women over 50, betrayed by families starting over, financial aid, legal help, counseling. Thomas's eyes widened. That's generous. And Rebecca? Evelyn's gaze hardened. 0, not a dime. She gets the lesson instead. They wrapped up as the lunch crowd trickled in, Thomas promising drafts by week's end. This is ironclad, Ev. Once signed, it's done. She nodded, slipping out the back door into the crisp air. Back at the motel, Evelyn reviewed the prelims he emailed to a burner account. Trust docs with airtight language. Foundation charter emphasizing recovery from familial deceit. It felt right, a way to turn her pain into purpose. But the emotional peaks kept coming. First, empowerment surging as she imagined Zoe free, thriving without Rebecca's strings. Then a pang of loss for the daughter she once knew, the little girl who'd cling to her during thunderstorms. What happened to you, Becky? She whispered to the empty room. Finally, cold determination settled, a shield against the hurt. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice, a step toward reclaiming what was stolen. With the will revamped, Evelyn ramped up her surveillance, the new plan adding edge to her shadows. She tailed Rebecca to a bank one afternoon, watching her withdraw cash, probably from the house sale, smiling like she'd won the lottery. Enjoy it while it lasts, Evelyn muttered from her car. Zoe appeared in glimpses too, heading to school with that sketchbook under her arm, looking more withdrawn each time. It tugged at Evelyn, planting seeds for contact. Maybe anonymous notes soon, to spark doubts. Thomas called with updates. Foundations filed, trust ready to sign. You're building something real here. Evelyn felt a spark of hope amid the fury, the intermediate steps leading her closer to confrontation. Heal more, gather proof, then unveil. The climax brewed. But for now, she signed the papers in a notary's office under her alias, sealing Rebecca's fate with a flourish. It's done, she told Thomas later. Now we wait for her to dig deeper. The betrayal's web unraveled, thread by thread, Evelyn pulling the strings from the dark. With the will signed and the foundation's gears turning quietly in the background, Evelyn knew the pieces were falling into place, but she couldn't strike yet. Rebecca was digging her own grave, but Zoe, that innocent caught in the crossfire, needed a way out. Evelyn stared at her reflection in the motel's foggy mirror, tracing the faint scars from the crash with her fingertips. The brown dye and glasses helped, but it wasn't enough. She needed to become unrecognizable, a shadow that could slip in close without raising alarms. Time for a new face, she muttered, dialing a number Thomas had slipped her, a discreet plastic surgeon on the north side. The kind who catered to folks wanting fresh starts without questions. Cash only, the doc had said over the phone. Evelyn agreed, her voice steady. The 12 million made it easy. She'd peel off enough for the procedure, heal in hiding, then make her move. The surgery was subtle, just enough to soften the edges. No Hollywood overhaul, but tweaks to her nose, a lift around the eyes, fillers to smooth the crash's lingering marks. She checked into a small recovery clinic under her alias, Evelyn Gray, the kind of place tucked in a strip mall with no waiting room drama. The doc, a no-nonsense guy with a thick Chicago accent, patted her hand before the anesthesia. "You'll look like your own sister, familiar, but not quite." Coming out of it, groggy and bandaged, Evelyn felt the pull of stitches, the swell of bruises blooming anew. Pain meds dulled the edges, but not the purpose. "Mirror," she croaked to the nurse the next day. The reflection stared back, sharper cheekbones, eyes that seemed wider, less weary. "Not bad," she whispered, a wry smile cracking her lips. It hurt like hell, but it was armor, a way to get close without Rebecca spotting the ghost of her dead mother. Thomas visited once, slipping in with updates. "Rebecca's office is booming, using your story for sympathy pitches." Evelyn nodded, face wrapped in gauze. "Good, let her build high, easier to topple." Healing took weeks, Evelyn holing up in a new apartment rental, a cozy one-bedroom in a quiet suburb, paid in cash, with a view of nothing but trees and passing cars. She practiced her new walk, a slight limp from the crash turned into a confident stride. Mornings were for stretches, rebuilding strength, afternoons for planning. Zoe weighed heavy on her mind, that girl with the sketchbook, looking more lost each time Evelyn spied her from afar. "She deserves the truth," Evelyn told Thomas over a secure line. "But slow, notes first, test the waters," he cautioned her. "Risky. If Rebecca finds out—" "She won't," Evelyn cut in, voice firm. The first note was simple, scribbled on plain paper. "Your gran loved those drawings. Keep them safe. Watch your mum's moves. They don't add up." She slipped it into Zoe's backpack one morning, parked near the high school, heart hammering as Zoe slung the bag over her shoulder without noticing. The spark ignited quicker than Evelyn expected. From her hidden spots, a bench in the park, a cafe across from Zoe's school, she watched the change. Zoe started lingering after classes, head down, fiddling with her phone like she was searching something. One evening, Evelyn tailed her to the public library, staying back in the stacks as Zoe hunkered over a computer. Peeking discreetly, Evelyn saw bank websites, old family statements. Zoe was digging, piecing together the discrepancies. "Smart girl," Evelyn whispered, pride swelling amid the nerves. The second note came a week later, tucked into Zoe's locker. "Check the old savings logs. Numbers don't lie. You're not alone." Zoe's reaction was electric. Evelyn saw her read it in the hall, her eyes widening, then stuffing it away with a glance over her shoulder. That night from her apartment, Evelyn paced, wondering if she'd pushed too far. But the bond was forming, invisible threads pulling them together. Hushed meetings started small. A chance encounter at the park where Zoe often sketched. Evelyn approached one foggy afternoon, cap low, voice disguised with a slight rasp from allergies. "Nice drawings," she said casually, sitting on the bench end. Zoe looked up, wary but curious. "Thanks, who are you?" "Just someone who knows your gran. Evelyn, right? Heard about the crash. Tragic." Zoe's eyes misted. "Yeah, miss her every day." They talked, surface stuff at first, art, school, but Evelyn dropped hints. "Heard your mum moved fast on the house. Odd, no?" Zoe frowned, nodding slowly. "Yeah, she's all about fresh starts, but it feels wrong." The doubt sparked, Zoe opening up about Rebecca's cold efficiency, the quick sales, the way she'd brush off questions. "Sometimes I wonder if she even cared." Evelyn's heart ached, but she held back, nurturing the seed. Maybe dig a little, old papers tell stories. Over stolen moments, coffee shop corners, library nooks, their bond strengthened, Evelyn revealing bits without blowing her cover. "Your gran set things up to protect you," she'd say vaguely. "Trust, stuff like that." Zoe leaned in, eager. "How do you know?" "Old friend," but Zoe was no fool. She started her own hunt, rifling through Rebecca's files at home when she was out. One meeting under a rainy pavilion, Zoe slid over printouts, bank transfers, mismatches. "Look at this. Mum's been moving money from Gran's account for years. Embezzlement." Evelyn feigned surprise, but inside triumph surged. "That's big, kid. Proof?" Zoe nodded, eyes fierce. "Copy's hidden. She's been lying." The teen's loyalty shifted from confused obedience to brave ally, hugging Evelyn impulsively one day. "You're like the grandma I lost. Thanks for listening." Evelyn's emotions rode the waves. First, the nervous peak of that initial approach, heart in her throat as Zoe could have run screaming. Then the warm rush of connection, tears pricking as Zoe shared stories of Gran, reminding Evelyn of the love still there. Finally, fierce pride as Zoe uncovered the embezzlement herself, becoming Evelyn's secret weapon, armed with evidence, ready to stand up. "We'll take her down together," Zoe whispered once, not knowing the full truth yet. Evelyn nodded, the intermediate alliance building toward the storm, but she held back the big reveal, waiting for the perfect moment. Rebecca's empire grew, oblivious, while Evelyn and Zoe plotted in whispers, the climax inching closer with every shared secret. The hushed meetings with Zoe had become Evelyn's lifeline, those stolen moments in parks and cafes, building a bridge she never thought possible from the shadows. But the time for whispers was ending. The evidence stacked up, bank records, forged signatures, Rebecca's web of lies exposed through Zoe's sleuthing and Thomas's legal digs. Evelyn felt the storm brewing, her new face a mask of calm over the fury inside. "We can't wait forever," Zoe had said in their last meet-up, eyes fierce under the library's fluorescent glow. "She's closing another big deal tomorrow, some fancy pitch at her office." Evelyn nodded, heart racing. "Then that's our moment. You ready?" Zoe squeezed her hand. "For Gran?" "Always." The plan clicked into place. Evelyn would storm in, unmask herself, Zoe following like a thunderclap. It was risky, explosive, but the only way to shatter Rebecca's glass empire. The next day dawned crisp, Chicago's skyline gleaming like a promise, or a warning. Evelyn dressed sharp but understated, a simple blouse, slacks, her brown hair pulled back, glasses ditched to reveal the subtle changes from surgery. She hailed a cab downtown, pulse thumping as the buildings loomed taller. Rebecca's new office was in a sleek high-rise, all chrome and glass, the kind of place that screamed success built on someone else's back. Evelyn slipped into the lobby, blending with the lunchtime crowd, her bag heavy with printouts, evidence of the embezzlement, the quick house sale, even transcripts Thomas had mocked up from that fateful phone call Maria overheard. "Floor 12, she told the elevator, voice steady despite the knot in her gut. Up she went, the ride feeling eternal, memories flashing. Rebecca as a toddler, chubby hands in Evelyn's, then older, colder, always taking. The betrayal burned fresh, but today it ended. The office doors whooshed open to a buzz of activity. Assistants typing, phones ringing, the air scented with fresh coffee and ambition. Evelyn strode past the receptionist, who looked up startled. "Ma'am, do you have an appointment?" "Tell Rebecca her past is here," Evelyn said coolly, not breaking step. The girl fumbled for the intercom, but Evelyn was already pushing through the glass doors to the conference room. There it was, the big client pitch. Rebecca stood at the head of a polished table, projector beaming slides of luxury properties, a half-dozen suits nodding along. She looked impeccable, tailored suit, hair sleek, that confident smile Evelyn knew hid a shark's teeth. As you can see, our firm's risen from personal tragedy, Rebecca was saying, voice smooth. My mother's passing in that train crash taught me resilience, turning loss into opportunity. The words hung in the air like poison, and Evelyn's blood boiled. She burst through the door, the slam echoing like a gunshot. Heads whipped around, murmurs rippling. Rebecca froze mid-sentence, projector light casting shadows on her face. Excuse me, this is a private, she started, then her eyes locked on Evelyn. Recognition dawned slow, horror widening those sharp features. What? Who? Evelyn stepped forward, voice cutting through the stunned silence. Hello, Rebecca. Or should I say, daughter? Surprise, I'm not as dead as you'd like. Gasps filled the room, clients shifting uncomfortably. Rebecca's face paled, hand gripping the table edge. This is insane. Security! But Evelyn was faster, slapping the stack of papers down with a thud. Before you call anyone, take a look. Bank transfers, 50 grand siphoned from my accounts over years. Forged signatures. You thought I wouldn't notice? Or care? She flung sheets across the table, statements fluttering like accusations. And that phone call? Laughing about my death, calling me a financial drag? I heard every word. The room erupted in whispers, clients grabbing papers, eyes scanning the damning numbers. Rebecca snatched one, face twisting. This is fake, lies, who are you really? Evelyn pulled off her scarf fully, letting the light hit her altered features, but the eyes. Those were unmistakable, the same ones that stared back from old family photos. Your mother, Becky, the one you erased for a quick buck, sold the house, and I pawned Dad's medals, tossed my life like garbage, all while playing the grieving daughter for sympathy deals. A client stood frowning. Is this true? We've invested based on your story? Rebecca stammered, composure cracking. No, she's unstable. The crash messed her up. Mum died. I saw the reports. Evelyn laughed bitterly. Reports? A mix-up. I survived, hid, watched you steal and scheme. Here's the settlement proof. 12 million from the railroad, all mine, not yours. Chaos built, phones buzzing as clients texted furiously, one already heading for the door. We're out. This smells like fraud. Rebecca lunged for the papers, shredding one in panic. You can't do this. I built this. Evelyn stood tall, voice thundering. On my back, years of loans you never repaid, secrets you hid, betrayal after betrayal. The word hung heavy, echoing the pain Evelyn had carried. But then the door flew open again, Zoe, breathless, backpack slung over her shoulder. Mom, Rebecca whirled. Zoe, what are you... Zoe stormed in, eyes blazing, pulling her own folder from the bag. I know everything. The embezzlement. I found the originals in your desk. Copies here with dates, amounts. You stole from Gran. She slammed them down, turning to the clients. She's been lying to all of you, using Gran's death for pity points while pocketing her money. Rebecca's facade shattered, face crumbling as she backed against the wall. Zoe, baby, you don't understand. I do, Zoe shot back, standing beside Evelyn, their hands brushing in silent solidarity. You've been manipulating us for years. Gran's alive, and she's the one who deserves better. Clients bolted now, murmuring about lawyers. Deals off the table. The receptionist peeked in, wide-eyed, as alarms metaphorically blared. Rebecca's empire crumbling in real time. Evelyn locked eyes with her daughter, the room spinning with tension. This is for every sacrifice you threw away. Rebecca slid down the wall, sobbing. Please, I didn't mean... But the damage was done, chaos reigning as security finally rushed in, too late to save the sinking ship. Evelyn's heart pounded, the showdown peaking in waves. First, the adrenaline rush of bursting in, voice steady despite the fear. Then, the cathartic release of flinging evidence, watching Rebecca's arrogance melt. Finally, triumph as Zoe joined, their alliance the ultimate blow, turning mother against daughter in a whirlwind of truth. But this wasn't the end, just the spark. Police would come, investigations follow, but for now, the room pulsed with raw emotion, leading straight to the fallout Evelyn had orchestrated from the shadows. The office showdown hung in the air like smoke after a fire, the chaos spilling out into the hallways as security ushered clients away, their murmurs turning to outright demands for refunds and lawyers. Evelyn stood there amid the wreckage of Rebecca's carefully built world. Zoe by her side, the girl's hand trembling but firm in hers, Rebecca slumped against the wall, face streaked with mascara, the room emptying like a deflating balloon. You ruined me," Rebecca whispered, voice breaking, but Evelyn just shook her head. "No, Becky, you did that yourself." As sirens wailed faintly in the distance, someone must have called the cops. Evelyn turned, guiding Zoe out without a backward glance. The truth was out. A bomb detonated, and now the fallout would bury what was left of Rebecca's lies. In the days that followed, the unraveling hit fast and hard, like a house of cards in a stiff breeze. News trickled in through Thomas's calls and the evening broadcasts Evelyn watched from her apartment couch, a mug of herbal tea cooling in her hands. Fraud probes kicked off almost immediately, the district attorney's office sniffing around after those clients filed complaints, armed with the papers Evelyn and Zoe had flung across that conference table. "Embezzlement charges pending," Thomas reported one evening, his voice crackling over the line. "Bank records match what Zoe found. They're freezing her assets, digging into the house sale too. Turns out she fudged some docs to speed it up." Evelyn nodded to herself, staring out at the city lights twinkling like distant stars. It wasn't glee she felt, not exactly. Just a quiet satisfaction, the kind that comes from seeing justice roll in slow but sure. Rebecca's grief story, the one she'd peddled for sympathy deals, blew up in her face. Clients bailed en masse, social media buzzing with scam artist tags and leaked pitch videos where she milked the train crash for all it was worth. Rebecca spiraled alone in that fancy condo she'd bought with the house proceeds. Evelyn knew from discreet drives past, spotting the curtains drawn tight, no lights on most nights. Thomas filled in the gaps. "She's lawyered up, but it's bad. Office shuttered, partners jumping, ship. Even the SUV's repossessed." Evelyn pictured her daughter pacing those empty rooms, phone silent, the empire she'd clawed together crumbling like dry sand. A fitting payback for the betrayals, the stolen savings, the laughed off death, the erasure of a mother's life for square footage and status. One tabloid even ran a piece. "Real estate queen built on lies, mother rises from grave to expose fraud." Evelyn skimmed it over breakfast, a pang hitting her chest, not regret, but a mother's sorrow for the broken path that led here. She had choices, Evelyn murmured to the empty kitchen, echoing words she'd told Zoe during their post-showdown talks. Evelyn stepped back from the fray, letting the legal wheels turn without her in the spotlight. "No interviews," she told Thomas firmly. "This isn't about me anymore." Instead, she poured her energy into the foundation, the Second Chance Network, now officially up and running with the settlement money as its backbone. Mornings found her at a modest office space downtown, not glass and chrome like Rebecca's, but warm with second-hand desks and posters of empowering quotes. "We're helping women just like you. she'd say to the first callers, ladies in their 50s and 60s, voices cracking over the phone about sons who drained accounts, daughters who ghosted after inheritances. Evelyn mentored them personally, starting with coffee chats that turned into strategy sessions. First, secure your papers, she'd advise, drawing from her own playbook. Then rebuild one step at a time. One woman, Margie, reminded her of herself, widowed, betrayed by a greedy kid. He took everything after my husband passed, Margie shared, tears flowing. Evelyn hugged her tight. You're not alone now. We'll get you back on your feet, legal aid, job training, even a support group. The work became Evelyn's salve, turning personal pain into communal healing. Afternoons blurred with meetings, lawyers volunteering time, donors trickling in after a quiet press release about the Foundation's mission. Focusing on midlife women reclaiming independence after family betrayal, the blurb read and calls flooded. Evelyn hired a small staff, including a counsellor who'd faced similar heartache. You're a natural, the counsellor told her one day as Evelyn wrapped up a workshop on financial literacy. Like you've been doing this forever. Evelyn chuckled wryly. Feels like it. But inside, the emotional peaks rolled through. First, the quiet grief revisiting her during solo drives home, wondering if Rebecca ever reflected on the little girl who'd once promised to take care of Mommy forever. Then a surge of purpose, watching a mentee like Margie land her first job in years, eyes shining with hope. Finally, a deep contentment settled, the betrayal's sting fading as she built something lasting, far from revenge's shadow. Zoe became her rock in those early weeks, dropping by the Foundation after school with takeout subs and stories from class. Mum's a mess, she'd say softly, no glee in it, just fact. Won't leave the house much. Evelyn nodded, stirring sugar into her coffee. Give her time or don't, your call. Their bond deepened an intermediate mend before full closure, with Zoe helping at the office, filing papers, even leading a teen support group for kids in fractured families. Gran would have loved this, Zoe said one evening, pinning a success story to the bulletin board. A woman who'd escaped a similar betrayal. Now thriving, Evelyn pulled her into a hug. She does. The slip hung there, but Zoe just smiled. The truth of Evelyn's identity, a secret they'd reveal in time once the dust settled. For now it was enough, mother and granddaughter, no, grandmother and granddaughter, rebuilding side by side. As probes deepened, Rebecca's isolation grew, a mirror to the loneliness she'd inflicted. Thomas updated. She's facing charges, grand theft, fraud, plea deal maybe, but her rep's toast. Evelyn watched from afar one last time, driving past the condo under cover of night, seeing a lone figure at the window staring out. No confrontation needed. The consequences spoke louder. Back home, Evelyn flipped through Foundation files, applications piling up, women sharing stories that echoed her own. This is the real legacy, she whispered, the intermediate step of stepping back leading to a fuller life. But closure loomed, a quiet twist waiting in the wings, as Rebecca's world fully unraveled, paving the way for Evelyn's final piece. The fallout from the office blow-up lingered like a bad dream, but Evelyn and Zoe didn't let it define their days. In a quiet twist that felt like fate's gentle nudge, Zoe showed up at Evelyn's apartment one rainy evening, duffel bag slung over her shoulder, eyes red but determined. I can't stay with Mum anymore, she said, standing in the doorway as thunder rumbled outside. It's too much, the lies, the yelling. Can I crash here? Just till I figure things out. Evelyn pulled her inside without a word, wrapping her in a hug that smelled of fresh laundry and home. Of course, kiddo, this is your place too. The spare room became Zoe's haven that night. Posters of art exhibits tacked up, sketchbooks scattered like confetti. It was temporary, they both knew. Zoe at 17 eyeing colleges and independence, but it bridged the gap, a safe harbour free from Rebecca's stormy shadow. Mornings in the apartment took on a cosy rhythm. Evelyn brewing strong coffee while Zoe toasted bagels, the radio humming soft jazz in the background. They'd sit at the small kitchen table, talking deep into the steam, mending old wounds, one conversation at a time. "Tell me about Grandpa again," Zoe would say, chin in hands, and Evelyn would spin tales of their early days. The little diner where they met, his goofy laugh that could light up a room. But the talks dug deeper, unpacking the betrayals like fragile china. "Why did Mom turn out like that?" Zoe asked one dawn, staring into her mug. Evelyn sighed, stirring sugar slowly. "Life's hard knocks, maybe. After your grandpa died, she shut down, started seeing love as a transaction. I enabled it too long, thinking it was help." Zoe nodded, tears welling. "She called last night, begging me to come back, saying she's sorry." Evelyn reached across, squeezing her hand. "Forgiveness is your choice, not mine, but don't rush. Heal first." Those chats built a fresh family tie, stronger for the cracks. Zoe sharing school dramas, Evelyn opening up about the crash's terror, the loneliness of hiding. Laughter crept in too, like when Zoe tried teaching Evelyn to sketch, both ending up in giggles over lopsided stick figures. Afternoons blurred with foundation work, Zoe tagging along more often, her fresh eyes a boon to the operation. "We could add art therapy," she suggested one day, helping sort applications at the office. "For the women, drawing out the pain, you know." Evelyn beamed, pride swelling. "Smart idea, let's make it happen." They did, piloting sessions where mentees like Margie doodled their stories, tears turning to tentative smiles. Zoe blossomed there, from shy teen to confident helper, chatting with the women about dreams deferred, her own independence blooming like spring flowers. "I'm applying to that art program in New York," she announced over dinner one night, application forms spread out. Evelyn's eyes misted. "Go for it. You've got the fire. Don't let anyone dim it." Rebecca's shadow loomed in updates. Thomas reporting her plea deal, community service instead of jail, but her life stripped bare. Condo sold, back to a small apartment, job hunting with a tainted resume. "She's regretful from what I hear," Thomas said, "alone mostly." Evelyn felt a twinge, not pity exactly, but a mother's quiet ache for the road not taken. "Her choices," she replied softly. "Hope she learns." Evenings brought reflection. Evelyn and Zoe walking the neighborhood park as dusk fell, leaves crunching underfoot. "Do you hate her?" Zoe asked once, linking arms. Evelyn paused under a street lamp, the glow soft on her altered face. "Hate? No, that'd keep me chained. I pity the emptiness she chose, selfishness leaving her hollow." Zoe nodded, leaning her head on Evelyn's shoulder. "I'm glad I chose you." Those walks mended the last fissures, forgiveness weaving in not for Rebecca, but for themselves. Evelyn letting go of bitterness, Zoe embracing forward momentum. "Life's seasons change," Evelyn said one twilight, watching kids play tag. "Ours is blooming now." Zoe grinned. "Yeah, no more shadows." The foundation grew roots, grants coming in, more women walking through the doors with stories that mirrored Evelyn's, betrayed by kin rising from the ashes. She mentored with a purposeful grace, her arc complete, from shattered survivor to healed beacon, quiet joy replacing the old fury. "You're different now," Zoe observed one Sunday, flipping pancakes in the kitchen. "Lighter." Evelyn smiled, flipping one high. Free, no revenge needed, living well's the best answer. Zoe laughed, catching it on the plate, but the emotional peaks rolled gentle now. First, the warm swell of daily routines, building ties free from manipulation. Then hope restored as Zoe applied to schools, her trust in Evelyn a balm on old wounds. Finally, a poignant close one evening, Zoe packing for a campus visit, duffel by the door. "I'll miss this," she said, voice thick. Evelyn pulled her into a tearful hug, holding tight. "Me too, kiddo. But this isn't goodbye, it's new beginnings. Go shine." As Zoe walked out, waving from the cab, Evelyn stood in the doorway, heart full, the story closing on promise, resilience echoing forward.